Welcome to the Sideline Live podcast. Subscribe for more episodes and follow our social media at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. On episode 15, I'm delighted to be joined by Irish senior international and professional basketball player Adrian O'Sullivan. Adrian is currently playing over in the 3rd division in Spain, and we had a brilliant chat about his career, overcoming serious injury at a young age, and much, much more. I hope you enjoy. We may as well get into it because we've a good bit to get through. Hilary Nets wanted to know, what was your favourite moment of the pick-up games in the summer?
That's a good question to start off with. Put me in a good mood. Some of those scrimmages are actually very good in Dublin. We don't do enough.
He was telling me about them.
We don't do enough of it in Cork at all. Those Dublin boys get along with one another.
Yeah.
I know, I'm only slagging. One of my favourite parts, probably just Scott Kinnavan in general, just taking it out of everybody any chance he could have. He's always enjoyable. He mouths off, but in a good way, you know. It's he almost doesn't know any other way, the way he plays. But yeah, so he was always entertaining. I never really got the raw into his deal, so that was why I probably found it funny.
Yeah. Kind of chatting about then, we go back to growing up. You mentioned Ballincollig there. Your family is heavily involved in the basketball community down there.
Yeah. So my mom and dad both grew up playing basketball. And moved to Ballincollig, and I suppose myself and Kieran, I have an older brother, Kieran. When we were growing up, we were thrown into every sport really, like a lot of people. But as we got older, I kept on to hurling and football to about 17, 18, and after minor, then it kind of took off just by. But yeah, it was always probably going to be basketball. And I'd say the reason being was once we started making Cork teams and Munster teams and Irish teams, and the travel that we were able to do and the experiences we were able to get, that kind of took over really, But yeah, so I've cousins and uncles, aunties, they all played, so it was kind of only natural really for me to kind of take off with basketball, I suppose.
And kind of chatting about those underage teams of Cork and Ireland, when did you start getting involved with those squads? My first Cork team experience was, you would never really hear of it now because there's so many good players at every single age group. But I was 11, I think, when I first played in under 14 Cork team. But it was just this Sunday morning Cork v Kerry one game type of thing, Yeah.
And I remember Paul Keller kind of just threw me on the end of the bench really, I suppose. But that was my first taste. But then it was when I got into first year and second year was when the real Cork team started taking off. We played in a Tom Collins tournament Aaron was in Sligo. I think it's been in UL and it's been in Dublin more recently. But you have to be in secondary school to make the team. Secondary school and under 15, I think it was. Mm-hmm. So they kind of brought in new different rules. So that was the first step, and then there was no Munster. I think the Munster teams came in the year after. I was born in 93, so I think it was 94, 95s that started playing in the Munster academies. So once I finished with the Cork stuff and the Tom Collins stuff, we just went to open trials for the national teams, and then that was under 15, and it was a 2-year program. So eventually then I was able to make the 16s Irish team and went to European Championships from there, and so
that's the rest is history. What was that first European Championships like?
I still probably say it was one of the best weeks of my life. It was unbelievable. It was our first cap together, and the people that I suppose when you get to about 15, pretty much around, because you're playing in national competitions at 13, 14 really, with the All Irelands, which are clubs and schools and stuff. So I knew all the names, and just I'd still say to this day our coaching staff picked probably the best 12 they could have at the time, and we were a good Irish team. We had loads of different names. I don't know if you know Kieran Rowe and Roy Downey and Neil Lynch, and there's 3 or 4 Dubs and 3 or 4 Cork, and then kind of different people placed around the place. But
Yeah, that was unreal. My under 16 Europeans was unreal. You were still playing against people who were professional at the time, which
Mm.
was far beyond our dreams even at that stage, you know.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, putting on the Irish jersey was for the first time was unreal.
yeah.
There's nothing like it.
And getting to go abroad as well with you, as you said, they're like your mates because you're so used to them. I'd say it was good crack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was my cousin made it as well running, so we were kind of tied to the hip growing up, and it was very special when we both got to play it together. And then just yeah, the closer friendships you made and the bonds that you have with the rest of the lads, and even still to this day, I have no issue catching up with them whenever I'm around, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So and that's kind of what started it off. I think with my first Irish team experience is probably my favorite.
Mm.
Probably because you're just so young and everything is so new to you, and you know, even when you're 15, being given a water bottle at the end of the bench from a team manager, you're not used to it. Like,
Yeah,
sounds stupid, but it's at the time, you're just
yeah.
all these new experiences. You're almost overwhelmed, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You feel
so
like LeBron James there.
yeah, yeah. At the time, you probably thought I was all right.
And did you progress? Did you naturally progress on to that under 18 national team?
So I was lucky enough to play in the 16, and then under 17, I got involved in a 2-year program, um, which was with tied together with that under 18 team at the time and the
Mm-hmm.
17s. So there was 22, 23 of us, I think, traveled to the US the summer after my under 16. So I was under 17 at the time.
Okay.
And the way the coaching staff did it was they took 10 93s, I think, and maybe 12 92s. And we just traveled around kind of New England area. And we went to Boston, and we played in AAU tournaments and different high school teams and that stuff. And it was what it was the goal was to eventually participate in the European Championships the following year for under
Mm.
18s.
Yeah.
But that was around the time, that was 2010. So that was around the time that the funding unfortunately got pulled, and you know, that kind of negativity. I don't really
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
get into that,
We
but
won't mention that bit. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So um, that was 2010, and then the Irish teams, I think the under 16s were kept, but the 18s, 20s, and senior teams for both male and female,
We're cut.
I missed out on them for I don't know, was it 6, 7 years or whatever it was. I think it was 2015, 2016 maybe by the time they came back.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I think Colin O'Reilly took the senior national team in 2015 to China,
Mm.
and they played 3 or 4 games abroad. I think that was the first Irish team set up in about
Yeah.
6 or 7 years, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Because I remember
so
there was kind of a once-off, or there could have been two of them, like a Super League Select that went to the UK,
yeah, yeah, they
but it
went to.
wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't a proper the
It was
proper
more of
setup.
like a Super League All Star team, I think, and there was a
Yeah,
couple of Americans around it, and you know there was
yeah,
no strict rules about passports and all that stuff.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Kind of chatting about that there. You were saying you went to the States and you got to tour around with the team. You eventually went to prep school. I presume, was there a link there from your time with the Irish team over there?
it's funny. I went to Trinity Pauling, which is in upstate New York City,
Mm.
and I don't know if you know the name Niall Murphy. He would have played with Demons for years, or he's retired for a couple of years now.
Okay.
But he's originally from Cork, and it was Pat Price was coaching Demons at the time, and he put Niall in contact with Trinity Pauling and Kieran, my brother, and there's 3 or 4 that I went before Kieran, and there's been 2 or 3 I've went since I've
Yeah.
went. But Trinity Pauling's always been a contact for quite a few of us at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother went in 2011, I think it was, when I was in fourth year, and it was kind of, you know, it was always in the back of my head that I always wanted to do it anyway. But then I went over to see Kieran play in 3 or 4 games, and mom and dad were over and back, and I think mom and dad knew by then that it might not have been Trinity Pauling, but I always wanted to go.
Yeah, yeah.
So we kind of kept in contact, and it was 3 years later then I finished my leaving cert and I just took off. But it wasn't like it was a done deal, but they knew that I wanted to come eventually, and we had
Yeah.
to figure out the
Okay.
ins and outs of it a couple of years later. But that was kind of where it all started. It was probably with Niall going and Kieran going, and just there being an Irish link, I suppose.
And what was how did you adapt to the experience? Probably nice that you had gone before and you knew so many of the lads who were there.
Yeah, I did. Like, I knew the whole geography of the place, which was already, I had, let's say, one up on a couple of my teammates who hadn't been there before, who were fresh coming in as well. I knew some of the coaching staff. The head coach had actually changed by the time he got in, but I knew some of the teachers because I got to speak to them when I was there. So
Okay.
I was more comfortable going than I thought I would have been, because I had seen the place, and obviously Kieran was able to tell me about his experience, and not that they were going to be identical, but I knew the ins and outs of the place, and what was expected, I suppose, from day to day. But then when I got there, you think you know more than you actually do, when you're getting up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and you have to go to chapel for the schedule of the day and the meetings and training every day against athletes that I hadn't seen before or competed against as much as I was. And so that was definitely a hard experience at the beginning, but a really good one. And it has stood to me until this day, really. It was my first kind of experience being thrown into the deep end, I suppose, as I said, with the athletes I was playing against and the speed of the game, and we're a little bit more technical and, A to B to C at home sometimes, whereas these balls are just flying up and down and just zooming past me. And I was like, all right, I need to try and get the grips of this.
And what was the biggest takeaway then from that experience, or the biggest thing you learned from being over there?
In terms of just everyday living, was with time management. Everything was a schedule. So,
okay.
And it was every single day as well. So usually, obviously, we go to school and learn every day, but you come home. Some nights you training, some nights you don't. We had study hall from 2 to 3, dinner from 5 to 6. You have to go training 6:30 to 8:30. You have to have more study hall.
Yeah.
There was no real, right, I'm just going to sit here and laser in place for a while. So more time management about life in general. But in terms of basketball, it was probably just the physicality. At home, the more talented and naturally skilled and gifted players were always the better ones. It wasn't until we got older. But just the strength conditioning and some of the physical attributes that they had at 15, 16 years of age were just kind of far superior than what I would have been used to. So I knew coming home, I had to get stronger, I had to get faster, or I just wasn't going to survive at the next level,
Yeah. And you were speaking to Hilary Nets on his live chat, and you mentioned you had a knee injury or something. You had a long-term thing.
Yeah. So when I was kind of 11, 12, I just had a knee pain. Didn't really know what it was. And kind of mom and dad were driving me around Munster and up to Dublin and just trying to figure out different perspectives from different doctors and stuff. And we couldn't nail it down. I was very stiff in the mornings, and the way I was running was starting to change. And I was obviously growing as well, So I was originally diagnosed with Osgood Slatters, which is, you probably know that yourself. A lot of younger boys and girls, when they're growing up, they get it. It was a misdiagnosis or whatever, and just went into first year, and I finally got diagnosed, and I couldn't even tell you the name now, it's so long. Osteochondritis dissecans is what it's called, right? So it's basically a loss of blood flow. Yeah, it's mad. It's a loss of blood flow in the cartilage, so the cartilage just breaks off the bone, and there's loose particles then that could be floating around.
Jesus.
But I was one of the very few people at the time to have it, and I don't know if it's more popular or less popular by now, but it's not like that I'm a case study, but I was very, it was it just wasn't popular. It wasn't really known, so that's probably why it took so long to be diagnosed, But I was just gone into first year, so I needed surgery. And they basically went in with a camera on one side, a knife in the other, got rid of the loose particles. But because I was so young and it was just off the weight-bearing part of my knee, that it just took a long time to recover. So I missed my under 14 season and half of my under 15. And then
so it's not like a once off, I just fell, like as in if you do your ACL or something like that, you know. It was kind of happening over time. So I knew eventually I'd have to get surgery again. So when I was 17, I had to get the left one done. And when I was 18, I got the right one done. But the second and third surgeries were very small. They were only kind of 2-3 month jobs rather than a year and a half with the first one. The difference was because I was an immature young teenager who didn't understand like why is this happening to me kind of thing. It took me a while to get into the whole rehab stuff, but I think that kind of, it changed my mindset, I suppose. It kind of changed like my work ethic, and I think that's where I learned a lot from that. But yeah, that's the whole background of the injury. But could have been said a little bit simpler. It's a very long name and all that. But
no, I'm interested.
So
I'm
that's
interested
what it
here
is.
because I'm actually going through injury at the moment, surgery on my leg, and it, like you said, like I haven't gone back playing yet, but it's changed my mindset. And I hope it does change my work ethic, because I do need a bit of a kick up the arse. But
it's a lot harder now though than it is that, like, you know, I could do whatever I wanted when I was 12, 13 because there was no COVID. You know, you're stuck on your own. It's very hard there's no games to even go and watch and go into, like, I got motivation from watching all my teammates run place and training, and you just want to throw the crutches away when you see your buddies playing, you know. Whereas you're pretty much in lockdown, so it is hard. Like.
It suited me because I'd be like you, like I'd be going mad sitting on the sideline. I've been dealing with this for a while, so I've been going mad for years, being sitting on the sideline, not being able to play the level I want.
Oh man,
how did you find the kind of getting back and getting the confidence back? Because I'm interested to hear how you overcame that.
They were very, very, very small steps. So I, like, so small. There'll be 3 weeks, 4 weeks of work and I see no improvement. And then there's a little bit of improvement, and then you go back to work and you get, you know, you climb one step of the ladder, and then you've not 3 or 4 weeks to go. But honestly, it was I'll never forget it. It was probably my earliest memory in my career, really, was how my mom dealt with it when I was every single day. So she'd come home from work and she's like, all right, before we do anything else, we're doing another set of exercises, or before you have your dinner, you're doing another set of exercises, and it was like, I was only 12, one-legged squatting, and I was like, I don't even know what a one-legged squat is, you know, but it was like, she was just so motivating. She was like, if you want to continue with your sport, and you know, it was all I ever wanted to do. So like, this has to be done first, and if you don't understand that, it's not going to happen. So I was like, I have to try and create small goals and start knocking them off the list. And then I had a couple of, you know, obviously my older brother helped, a couple of friends then as well that were always out with the hurley and stuff, and they were like, no, exercises first, you can't, you know. So which was, it might have been a little bit easier because it's hard for me to tell you, like, do your exercise, you know. Of course, you know, you need to do your exercises, but when you're 12, it's like, okay,
I know
cool.
What you're saying. Like, that's good to have that support there at home.
But 100%. And then I suppose just the natural want to, I don't know, I've always just wanted to be more successful all the time and better than I was a couple of months ago, or better than the last game, and that was kind of in me since I was that age as well. So I was like, I want to help my team, or I want to win more medals, or whatever. I want to make an Irish team, or that was probably one of the bigger motivations, really, I'm not going to be able to make an Irish team if I can't run.
Yeah,
so
exactly. That's good.
The next goal is to go and run.
Yeah.
Just breaking it down into smaller goals, I suppose, really.
That's a good tip.
Was my biggest factor.
Yeah, and kind of coming home then from the prep school, you went to UCC and you started off with Demons. What was that like? Because you would have joined them, and then they would have had a lot of success over that time.
Yeah, so I was extremely lucky to come into the team. It was kind of perfect timing, really. They had a coaching change, and Colin O'Reilly, who's, as you know, arguably the best basketball player we've ever produced, was coming back into the Demon setup, and he was appointed player coach, and Kieran, my brother, and Kyle Hosford, Niall Murphy, they were kind of, you know, in or around their primes, or coming into their primes, let's say, really. And just kind of young, athletic, very motivated players, you know. And I was just a young guy that wanted to be successful, but was in the perfect setup to be thrown right into the deep end in terms of the standard that Colin held us to. But also, like, if I ever had a question, or there was just so many different people you could go to, and Niall O'Reilly and Shane Collin are top 25 Irish basketball players. The list goes on. I was just so lucky to go into the team that I went into, and there was a ton of learning when I was in the States, but over that first 3 years there was just an enormous amount of learning, like every single week. And there were sometimes I come home from training being like, I don't know if I can do this, because I wanted more all the time, but I was asking almost too much to take it all in, and just I wasn't being patient enough, really. I think Colin would tell me one thing, or Shane would say one thing, and you're trying to take it on board, do it, and then ask the next question and say, I just had to be more patient. But naturally over the 3 years I grew, and then when there was a coaching change, Colin went away to England. Niall Murphy had an injury and he retired, and Roy Downey went back to Neptune. Kyle had to get surgery, so it kind of, I'm not going to say it fell apart very quickly, but we weren't the same team. Shane Collin retired, and Niall stepped away for a while, and there was different things. He was having a baby and all that stuff. So my role naturally got bigger, and that was what Kieran kind of said to me. He was like, "You're ready now to not be the 7th, 8th man. You have to be the top 3 or 4 now." And after those 3 years, that was where I made the biggest jump. And I think if it wasn't for those 3 years, I definitely wouldn't be where I am now. Colin brought a sense of professionalism that I had never, and I don't think I think he raised the bar of the Irish Super League at the time. I think when he came in, just his sense of professionalism every single day when we were coming into training, he held us, he just held the standard above what a lot of us were used to. And once we followed, I think other teams followed then. And that's why the Killesters and Marions, Tralee, Templeogue, that they've been so good since. And that's not the only reason, obviously, but I do think Colin did raise the bar. And I was lucky enough then to be on that roster that did get to do that. So
absolutely. Kind of chatting about those players and those takeaways, I'm interested to hear what were some of the real big tips that you've taken and you've implemented to your game or to your training or your work ethic.
Just Colin's work ethic was just like something I hadn't really seen firsthand. Like you watch everything on social media, you see all the different things, but Colin, like, no matter what, he always challenged his own performance first, and he led by example. And he held himself to a high standard before he'd hold us. He never told us anything. He never told us to do something that he wasn't doing himself. He was always trying to go do one more step further and bring the rest of us along with him. And then Kyle and Shane and Kieran, just their natural smarts, their basketball IQ was just unreal. And like I had to try and slow down the game for myself to get better. I was still the 19, 20-year-old just sprinting up and down, thinking that was the way basketball was played, jumping into the big man and trying to, and Kyle and Shane were just giving me tips, and trying to play at two different paces is better than just running up and down. I was like, but I'm faster, I can just go quicker, and so it doesn't work like that. So playing at a different pace, and then just consistently being able to shoot the three, like between Shane, Kieran and Colin at the time, they're probably the top 3 shooters we had in the league. And all they did was shot reps. Like every time in training, it was just, the same technique all the time. And like if you miss 5 in a row, you're still shooting the 6th one, the 7th one. Just those smaller things, that their mental toughness overall was I think what was the difference for us as a team. I played with an American, Lamont Colbert, who's actually, he most recently played in Neptune, but I played 4 seasons out of the 5 I did in Demons. I played 4 of them with Lee, and still to this day he'd be one of my favorite teammates. Just
his smart, his IQ was just unreal, and it wasn't just from his position.
Yeah.
It was the smaller details that he was able to share with myself and Kyle, and how to read a ball screen, and again slowing down.
Okay.
And just being confident, because there'd be times where I'd be getting in my own head, and he's like, "What's the point? The more you get in your own head, the less learning you'll do."
Yeah.
You know, because you're just giving out to yourself instead of, okay, why did it actually happen? What can I do to fix it?
Yeah.
He was unbelievable that way. So there's so many names. They were just beyond lucky to the team that I went into at the time.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
But those things.
That's brilliant to have, like, someone like that giving you that insight.
Yeah. Especially for the age that I was, and for the, you know, if I had a little bit of talent to come into the team, I would have played on different teams if I was a Dubliner, or if I was from Limerick or whatever. But it was just, at the time, it was perfect for me to come in, replace Shane, and bring energy and learn, and sit back down again, and they'll just go and finish the job.
Yeah.
My job was easier than people think.
Yeah.
I got to be part of something that was bigger than myself, which is unreal. But just the learning every day was just so cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. And chatting about there, you were saying that high standard with the team. What was the training and the schedule like for the practices?
So pre-season, we would do a lot of gym work, which I loved, which I needed the most, really. So we do every Tuesday, Thursday, you'd lift, and then Colin would have an optional shooting session kind of earlier in the summer. But then I remember getting our second year was the year we went undefeated, and I think I got a message on the 13th or 14th of June.
Wow.
And the season doesn't start until September.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, obviously you can take your holidays if you're going away in July or August, but if you're not and you're around, you better be here.
Yeah.
And it was just the togetherness that we had, and just kind of holding one another accountable, kind of, whether it's just shooting sessions or whether it's running on the track upstairs or lifting. There was always somebody else that wanted it just as much as you did, and it's just kind of the togetherness, I suppose, really.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. As Colin always said, like basketball is obviously fun, but it's only ever really fun when you're winning. And I kind of was like, I've always fun. I have medals, but I don't have them all.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've always fun. And then as soon as I got a taste of success, we just wanted more and more and more. And then that was when it really got fun. But the more success we had, the harder we were being pushed, and the more we'd work. And it was great for those 3 years.
Yeah.
But the schedule when we went into the season itself was every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We'd have team training, but again, Colin, Kyle, Kieran, myself, different people would lift when we could. You know, the people who don't have the 40-hour weeks and 3 kids and a wife at home, and everybody was there on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but like there was always somebody else that would go to Tuesday, Thursday with you. So I was in UCC at the time as well. So if I would get a program from Colin or from whoever was in the Mardyke at the time. And be able to lift on Tuesday mornings or in between lectures and stuff like that as well. So
okay, that's pretty cool.
And
kind of chatting then, that, like, you obviously moved on to professional then soon after, but was that level, how can you compare that to the professional standard that you've played?
Like my demon, the first pro contract I signed was I went to the second league in England. It's better overall. From 1 to 12, it's better. That's 1 to 12 teams. It's better than the Super League. But there's 4 or 5 teams in the Super League that if they trained the way the people in England train, or the amount of time that they spend on court together, they'd have no issue playing in the second league in England.
Okay.
The differences were, 1, the physicality, 2, the shooting percentages, but it's all coming back to the time that they got to spend.
Yeah.
Because if all our Demons players within those 3 years, or the Temple Over Tralee teams in the last couple of years, if they were being paid every day, they don't need their 9 to 5, of course they're going to be better. Of course they'll be in better shape. The shooting percentages will always go up, but it's just, I suppose, the opportunity that we had in England at the court time, and fellas were willing to give up the 9 to 5 and make a little bit less money, but to go to the gym every single day and put in the hours, and that was the main difference. But The pace of the game over there was mad. Like, just, it brought me back to some of the prep school stuff. Like, some of the inner city London boys were just like 100-meter track runners.
Okay.
They were just up and down, and they never stopped. The engines of, so it was a very young league.
Okay.
Kind of young professionals, but then young, like, I had 5 or 6 teenagers on my team as well.
Okay.
Which was also a learning curve for me to be one of the more mature ones in your first level of, or one of the more experienced ones in your first year of signing a pro contract. But the main differences in that league were the shooting percentages and just the athleticism really, and the fitness levels, which then led to kind of higher levels of intensity on defense.
Yeah.
So, but again, stuff that we could all control at home to a certain extent, but especially if we all weren't in 9 to 5s, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's too hard for me to say to all the Demons boys, right, give up the 9 to 5. You won't make any money for playing basketball or in your office job.
Yeah.
But we'll win all the medals. Like, it's not.
They'll tell you where to go
realistic.
there, Adrian.
Yeah, exactly. It's not realistic. So,
and
that was the main difference, really.
Yeah. And how did that opportunity come about to go over to the UK?
So, coming back to Demons, it was kind of Kieran kind of put into the back of my head, and would have played against Isaac, and I was at Westbrooks and Leicester, and Pop Summers from Temple Oak, and even Colin, myself, when I was training with him, they put into the back of my head, like, oh, you should think about it, maybe you could try it, you could even be a guinea pig on the end of a BBL team and just get the experience and, you know, learn the pro life and whatever. But at the end of my 5th year in Demons, which was probably my best year, personally it was my best year, Alan Keane, he's originally from Tralee. He had a job in Reading Rockets, which is about, I suppose, 40 minutes just outside London.
Okay.
And he invited me over just to come for a weekend, and we were talking back and forth, and, you know, just to kind of the deal was pretty much done, but it was more of a trial, really, just so I could get to know the place and, you know, show me where the house would be and what the schedule would be like. And as soon as I came back, I just jumped at it. I said, I have to try it just to see, just to experience it. And I was always kind of wanting to do it, but I was just finished my master's, and it was perfect timing, really, just to say, right, I don't have my 9 to 5 yet, why don't I try this and see where it takes me.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got to Reading, I just got better and better and better and wanted more and more and more, and it kind of took off from there. But the original contact was through Alan, who again was Irish, and he's one of the very few Irish born professional coaches at the moment outside of Ireland. So I was very lucky that he approached me, and at the same time my cousin Ronan was working in London.
Mm-hmm.
And not that we were a package deal, but as soon as I said, Ronan was looking for a team over there because he was finished his stint in Ballincollig with the new job, and as soon as he heard that I was there, he was like, right, maybe I'll try and make contact and we can see if I can figure something out to get down there. So he came, and then I don't know, do you remember Trey Pemberton that played 2 years in Tralee?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
He played with Tralee Warriors, and he had a great 2 years, 2 Champions trophies, and he was MVP and all that stuff. But he was one of our Americans that signed there at the same time.
Okay.
And you know how small the Super League is, like everybody kind of knows one another. So yeah. I was already in contact with Trey, and then found out he was going to be my housemate. And so it was kind of, which was nice to have that little bit of home.
Yeah, exactly.
And even though he was American and Ronan was away for a while, but it was nice to have just my first pro contract, to have something from home, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like it was a stepping stone, but it felt like a smaller one.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of home with me, so.
Yeah. That's similar to your time that you would have gone to preps, obviously, because you got to go over beforehand. You had the links.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
And then even coming back into Demons, where my brother was already on the team, and you know, he was able to help filter me into the team, you know. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to have those connections. And then, how long did you spend in England before heading to Germany?
1 year. So I did a year prep, the 5 years in Demons, 1 year in England, 1 year in Germany, and now I'm in Spain.
Oh, okay.
Which sounds crazy. It's 4 different countries in whatever 9 years or whatever it is, which is very, very cool when you look back on it. But I did 1 year I did one season in England, and I was thinking about going back, but it was kind of a toss up. I was, you never want to burn the bridges. So I was in contact with Alan again, and he was the type of coach that wanted me back, but if I got an opportunity elsewhere and it was at a higher level, that he would have pushed me away from Reading, if that made sense, which was great of him, really. So I was, at the time, I had an Italian agent, and I had signed with the Italian agent just as I had signed with Reading.
Okay.
So we were in contact all year, and he was, supporting me or whatever. And the summer after Reading, I was playing with the Irish team, and I was getting better and better, and I was in contact with him. He said, look, I think I can find you something in Germany. And I said, new country, new experience, don't know anybody there. It's going to be very different to England. I have a little bit of German, but not a ton. I just said, all right, let's go, let's try it and see where it can take me. And obviously I had a lot of support from home as well. And, they're always just, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it?
Absolutely.
I've always wanted to travel. I have the travel bug, so being able to do this with basketball is killing two birds with one stone. So I went to Germany and did a season there, but right before COVID hit. So we had about 4 games left after COVID hit, and then Ireland was going into lockdown, Germany the same. So it was just time to fly home, and which was a pity because I obviously wanted to do my little bit of traveling after the season before I came back to Ireland, and that's trying to kill two birds with one stone. But it's what it is. I was still very lucky to enjoy Germany and have the experience that I had there.
Yeah, exactly. And how did you find going to Germany? Obviously, it'd be a big culture change from being in Ireland, the UK.
It was a massive culture change, but I studied German in school, so I had it, a little bit of it. So that kind of helped, but no disrespect, but the Germans are very different to the Irish and even the Spanish.
Yeah.
It took me a while to kind of break into the circle of the personalities of the team. It was it was very different to Ireland and very different to Reading. In Reading, I was living with 5 of my teammates, and we were very good at parking basketball and going to London and doing something different and getting away from it, I suppose, really.
Yeah.
But in Germany, it was like you show up to training, you train as hard as you can, and you just go back home and you wait for the next training session. They're very reserved, conservative, very strict in their ways.
Okay.
But no, which isn't, I had to adapt to that as well. I wasn't going to come over here and change the culture.
It
was more like me just learning what they were about.
Yeah.
It wasn't an issue, or wasn't their fault, but it was interesting. It took me a while, probably up until about Christmas, but eventually, I figured out where to go, who to go to, if I wanted something different other than basketball. And because the biggest learning curve in Reading was I was getting too high on the good days and getting too low on the bad days, and just end up mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
And it's going to take away from your level of play, So when I was in Germany, I wanted that. I learned in England that you have to do that, so I wanted to find that something different. So I was living with an American who was a little bit like myself, just wanted different all the time. So we'd start, travel to different cities, and I got to see Cologne, I got to see Hamburg, and all those different things were amazing at the time. And I'll always look back at it that I was very lucky,
Yeah.
that I did, because the relationships that you do build from it are things that you take away, but they're also a massive part of the experience at the time. If I was living with an American who wasn't open-minded or who didn't want to do anything and wanted to sit in his room all day, it's going to hamper my experience a huge amount, so the massive culture change, but once I got used to that, then the basketball itself was just way more physical.
Okay.
The typical Germans, a lot of 6'6" to 6'10" guys who were just block. So it took me a while. I shot a lot more 3-pointers that year than I did in Reading. But yeah, so that again needed to get stronger and stronger, and it was kind of learning a new style of play.
and it was very defensively. You're playing defense for more than 24 seconds. It feels like every time. They ran their offense just continuously all the time. Whereas in Reading, you'd end up with a quick shot, and there was no issue. If you were open, you take it, and that's it. And I'm just talking about the teams we were playing against. It was the pace of them was like, if there's not a fast break, you're slowing down and you're literally squeezing every last second you can out of the shot clock. Very slow, very physical, tons of screens to fight through, and just different style. Which was cool. It took me a while, but it was good just to learn a different way of playing the game.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't drastically different. It's still basketball, but it was just a different style. And our coach was a little bit of an old school coach. So he, again, if the fast break was there, okay, but if you missed the fast break, he's like, I told you to slow it down. Let's slow everything down, type of thing.
That's interesting.
So,
and what's that? I know you will talk about kind of getting over to Spain, but what's that style like in Spain now compared to Germany and the UK?
Overall, a much higher level.
Okay.
A much that I've played at. The Spanish boys are just so skilled naturally. Like whatever they do with their right hand or their good hand, they can do with their off hand.
Okay.
Just their handling of the basketball and their balance, what they can do with their body. If the ball is going one way, their body's going the other, and it just brings it back to the way they're coached as 12, 13-year-olds or even younger again. Well, I'm playing with a point guard at the moment, and he's just a wizard with the basketball. Like it's impossible to take it off him unless you just rugby tackle. It's the only way you can get away from. But the style overall is it's quick, it's very intense. The shooting percentages are excellent. If you're one step off the mark, like you're punished.
Okay.
It's very obvious we don't point fingers because no one wants to as a teammate, but it's very obvious if made, you can see it straight away and who made the mistake, because mistakes aren't usually made in the style of play that because we train every single day, twice a day, and everybody knows where the next person is supposed to be. So as soon as you make a mistake, it's like,
you don't even need to say it, you know already who it is.
You know straight away, whereas you just can't take possessions off over here. And again, fitness levels are up again, but naturally because we train more than I did in Germany or in England, but that would be the intensity and just the overall skill level is the main difference, and the length of some of the defenders I'm going up against are like, I'm only 6'2", not only, but that's small almost for some of the guys I'm going against over here. They're 6'6", 6'7", and their arms go on forever. And you can't kind of do whatever you want. You have to be not play safe or too hesitant, but you do have to be smart. Like I don't play the exact same way over here than I did or than I will when I go back home. I can take a little bit more risks because again the arms aren't going on forever, and you might only be 1 6'10" guy, not 4.
So, I know what you're saying. That's really interesting. And kind of chatting about you finished up in Germany, obviously COVID hit that summer. Then were you kind of on the fence about going over again? Was it obviously a bit more difficult to get a team?
There was at the time Spain and Italy were, when I came home from Germany, it was in March. I think it was about the 18th of March.
Okay.
And that was when Spain and Italy were in awful condition. They were almost away, or even worse than what Ireland has been the last couple of weeks. So I was like, okay, take Spain off the list. Maybe we can go back to Germany.
Okay.
Will you take a look at Ballincollig and go back and play with the lads? And I seriously thought about it. And obviously right now was the best decision ever to come to Spain. Number one, because Spain is great, but number two, there's been no season at home. So, but I was going back and forth, and we were in the middle of lockdown. So after you do your lockdown workout with my brother, I was just emailing and phone calls, Zoom calls to different players, different people. As what league do you think can go ahead? What way is COVID in this country? It was all mad, really. And it's funny, like a lot of professional basketball, or any professional athlete really, would probably tell you, like, when your first contract is up or one contract is over, you're like, or you just go home and you're like, I've no idea what country I'm going to be in next year or what team will I be in, but sometimes it can be overwhelming. And
I won't lie to you, it was a little bit overwhelming when COVID hit as well. I was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but I knew deep down I did want to try and go somewhere else, and so I got in contact with another agent, and he's actually Spanish himself, and he's only from maybe 2 hours from here.
Okay.
And I was lucky enough that he said, look, give me 2 weeks and I'll have something for you. I can't promise what league, what it'll be, but just give me a couple of weeks. And I signed, I think it was the end of July. Yeah, it was the end of July, I think, which, it's probably a regular time. It's not late, certainly not late to sign. So then I had about 4 or 5 more weeks at home, and COVID restrictions kind of lifted and stuff, so I got to have a bit of a normal summer. But I wanted to be part of the senior Irish squad as well,
Yeah.
And obviously when that was taken away, I was like, right, kind of, there's only so much you can do on your own as well, or playing one-on-one with your brother. Like, you get something out of it, but when it's every day for 3 months, it gets repetitive. So that was disappointing not to have the Irish, or the opportunity to make the Irish team at least.
Yeah.
But overall, I do feel like I'm better off with the decision I made, because obviously, again, as I said, there's no season at home, and
yeah, exactly.
I don't know how I'd cope.
yeah, absolutely. And kind of chatting then about that time you knew you were going to Spain, and before you went, what were you working on over the summer to improve your game?
Obviously, physically, you could never be too strong or whatever, and especially because I didn't have a massive amount of access for the first month or maybe 6 weeks of the lockdown. I didn't have huge access to being able to shoot the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually we got into the school gym nearby, which was unreal, and I got an advantage over other people with it.
Mm-hmm.
And living under the same roof as my brother at the time, we weren't breaking any bubbles, so we just get into the gym ourselves. And so shooting a lot of reps, playing a lot of one-on-one, but before that, it was just loads of strength and conditioning stuff and body weight stuff, and just regular HIIT workouts like every other human in Ireland was doing at the time.
yeah.
And then just kind of interval sprints, and just, I'm not really one for 5 to 10Ks like some of my buddies are, but
the 15-minute 5Ks people are doing this summer.
Yeah, I don't know how serious I could take some of those times that were being thrown up on social media, but yeah, I tried to replicate the basketball fitness as much as I could. So, I was just running kind of interval sprints, really, I suppose. You might be running 20-second sprints 15 times or something, or a 8-second hill sprint, do 10 of them, and, a lot of kind of explosive power, lunges, squats, that type of stuff, just to, we don't need to be bodybuilders as basketball players. You need to be active, and you need to be, you want to be lean more than anything else, and powerful and agile and all those kind of things. So I tried to replicate my workouts to that more so than within reason. Obviously, it was hard at the time. But when the restrictions lifted, then I got to go back into the gym and bunch of one-on-ones then and stuff like that. And I did a little bit of pre-season then, because I didn't get over here until about the 7th of September. So I did some pre-season with Ballincollig, and that was nice to be able to compete with some of the lads. And eventually I got to go into a season, but they had to go to their houses.
Yeah. So. And kind of chatting then, when you came over to Spain, you did a takeover on the page, which was brilliant, really good insight into your usual day. Can you take us through the kind of training schedule? So there was a 2-a-day you had when you did the takeover. I got the sense that the morning one was more individual than the afternoon.
Yeah. So it would depend, but so yesterday was Monday. So woke up yesterday morning, where every morning you're in the gym at 10, as in the basketball gym at 10.
Okay.
And if we're not lifting, Tuesday and Thursdays we're usually lifting. So let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, it's always skill-based, but we do a lot of body weight stuff before we get onto the skill. Body weight meaning like some of the stuff we showed, with the, kind of sprints, change direction, that type of stuff, or lunges, jumps, hurdles, all that. And if after that, then we're doing more kind of, you might play a one-on-one and you're working on your defense, or rotations of stuff out of a ball screen, and then just shooting loads of reps. And then at night, it's always like a regular training session at home. You're competing 5-on-5, and there's 13 guys there, and so we'd have 2 guys on our team that would work, and 1 that's in college, so he might be hit or miss. But you still have 8 to 10 guys every morning that would be there. So sometimes, depending on how our game went on the Saturday, if we were awful, we're probably competing the Monday morning as well. So we'd always have Tuesday morning lift. Sometimes we'd shoot after. But if you have a heavy lifting session, you're not going to be running that night. You'd always have Tuesday night off. And then Wednesday double, Thursday double, sometimes Friday double, depending on how late our game is on Saturday. And then the game days, let's say if it's Saturday morning, maybe 10 to 11 you'll shoot, or 11 to 12, and then you're back in the gym again at 5 for a game at 6:30 or something like that. So we touch a basketball about 8 to 9 separate times a week, which sounds ridiculous when you have people who train at home in a top league only twice a week or something, you know. But again, it goes back to, it's our job. It's like you have to go to the office, or somebody has to go to the office every day, 5 days a week, and it's only for an hour and a half to 2 hours every morning, and an hour and a half to 2 hours every night. And the whole Spanish lifestyle of the siesta and all that obviously helps. So you just shut down in the middle of the day and get your food and rest in, and you just go back at it then that night. So but I absolutely love it. But if you didn't love it, it would be very difficult to do, because it's so demanding on your body.
And mentally as well. I'd say you're exhausted.
Mentally, you're right. But you just, you know, I would never complain about the fact that I have to go to training, because I look at some people at home and I just don't know if I'm ready for the 9 to 5 office job. I know it doesn't have to be that, but you know, that's what the typical route. That's what the average basketball player does at home, you know.
Exactly. I'm interested here as well in terms of your team lifts. I know younger players don't have much maybe resources or knowledge at the gym. What type of lifts are you guys doing in the gym?
We do a lot of core, whether we're in the gym or not. So you're like our trunk, like, so let's say from the knee up, chest down, we do a ton of work on that, and that would include like hip mobility and, you know, hamstring exercises, a lot of lunges, a lot of squats, side lunges. We do a lot of balance work. Our S&C guy is really, really high level. He's very good. We do a lot of balance stuff. So for foot and ankle mobility, basic stuff like standing on one foot, throwing a chest pass 10 times back and forth off a wall, switching leg, doing that 3 times over, going into a set of lunges, and then, you know, maybe some planks to push-ups and stuff. But then when we get into the actual weightlifting, we do a lot of basic lifts, really, like chest press, squat rack, and RDLs, just to get the main, and then maybe some dumbbell row. But some of the stuff he throws in are kind of funky. Like, you could be no hands, no legs, but sitting on an exercise ball and doing med ball twists, and then throwing it to your partner and trying to stay balanced, and which is fun and very different. He tries to change it up. We wouldn't do that every day now, but he changes it up just to keep us, you know, entertained, I suppose, really. Because if you do come in and you're, whatever it is, 8-9 times a week, and you're doing the same stuff all the time, it's, you know, it'll get old quick. Now he does stick to the basics, but he changes it here and there, which is great. But if we just, for the younger people, if you don't have weights, like there's so many variations of push-ups you can do, so many variations of lunges, and don't get me wrong, it gets repetitive and it gets annoying, but if it's what, you know, you'll get something out of it at the end, you know. And if it's what you want to do in time, you have to do the boring stuff.
And it goes back to your original knee injury. You had to do those same exercises every day.
Exactly. Exactly. And I don't think that if maybe I'm wrong, maybe I would get here eventually, but if I didn't have that challenge when I was that young and understand how hard you have to work if you really want something, that, you know, because I brought that forward. I was only 13, understanding that, and when I got to 16, I was like, all right, I need to push myself even more, and I'm growing into my body. And it just, as I got older, I knew that my work needed to come up more and more and more. And I think from that injury, it kind of started from there. I think that kind of changed my mentality, I suppose, really.
Yeah.
As I said originally. But
and do you still get trouble with your knee, or is that all kind of?
Knock on wood, no, right now. So I'm very lucky for the moment. The last surgery I got was about 2 months before I went to the States, so it's about 8 years ago now.
Okay.
Which is the longest I've gone. So they've been great. Now they do get stiff in the winter, and you know I have to stretch or whatever. But like, if stretching is the only thing, or wearing a pair of tights is the only thing I have to do to solve my knee issues, I no issue with it, you know.
Yeah, that's good.
So no, they've been very good. But obviously with all those lunges and the squatting and all that stuff we did with Colin, and when I went to Alan and Reading and strength conditioning guy here, obviously all that stuff helps.
Yeah, definitely.
And so just having a strong core and all that stuff is huge for me.
Yeah, exactly. They always say the core really, like, if you have a strong core, you're going to limit like injuries.
Yeah. Every athlete, no matter what sport you play, you have to, you know, both male and female, they all the high level athletes, they say the same thing. Your core is huge for you. Like it's where everything comes from.
Yeah, exactly. And chatting about your division, is John Carroll in the same division as you?
Yeah.
Have you played against each other?
Yeah, John's only 45 minutes from here. So John's in Zamora and I'm in Salamanca. So a 45 minutes drive. So with them being so close, we actually played one another 3 times in pre-season.
Oh, okay.
So I've seen John a decent amount, and then we played one another. It was before Christmas, but I forget what. Okay, it was a couple of games before Christmas, and we played them at home. We beat them in the end, but they're a very, very talented team. Honestly, they might have more individual talent than we do. We played very well that night, and you know they missed a lot. It was just one of those things that the ball dropped for us and it didn't for them on the night. But we'll play John again, but it won't be until I'd say March, April.
Okay.
March, I'd say I'll play him again in March. But yeah, I'll send that link back because I know, like, people need to see John anyway. Whatever about me, people need to see John. John's having a great year, and he's very, very talented. So, and he's definitely one to watch for. Leb Silver won't be the highest he'll play at, I think, in time.
Okay. He's definitely one to watch.
For sure. He's super.
Yeah. Kind of chatting then about that season. When do you guys finish up in Spain? How does the season work?
So there's 14 teams in our league, and the top 8 will go into playoffs. And obviously that's where our goal. We're there right now, but you know we'd still have to solidify it. Really, there's another full round of games to be played.
Yeah.
So we've 13 more games to play, and that'll take us up until I'd say maybe the second weekend of April, and then depending on how you could be done the third weekend of April, or you could go right into the third weekend of May, depending on how your playoff run goes. And the way the playoffs will work this year because of COVID, it's not like the best of 3 or best of 5 or anything like that. It's just a once-off game, I think.
Okay.
I think so anyway. I'm not sure. I'm not looking too far ahead yet. But hopefully I won't be back until May.
Okay. Well, hopefully not. Yeah. Chatting about the summer then, in the international, the European Championship for small countries I think it's still due to go on in the summer. Kind of chatting about your international experience with the senior team. When did you originally get called into the squad?
It was in the end of 2015 for the summer of 2016. So when I came back, my first 2 years in Super League, there were still no Irish teams. So that was, let's say, 2013, 14, I think they came back in 15. And I got to play under Colin, actually, at the time. He was the head coach of the senior men's at the time, and we played in Moldova in summer 2016. And then I got to play in, where did we go? San Marino in summer 2018. And then the plan was, all going well, was to play last year. So I played 2 years ago. We went to Slovakia and we played against Luxembourg at home. The original team hasn't been picked yet, or wasn't picked. that summer was full of about 20 to 25 of us, I'd say.
Okay.
So I was part of that. But yeah, the plan would be, all going well, that I do get the opportunity to make it. So we'll see. Hopefully the Europeans go ahead. I think whether I'm there or not, I just think that for the senior men's to be hosted at home after the year that we've had, I just think it'll be great for basketball, and I also think it'll just be great for sport in general, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not often we get to host a senior men's tournament, no matter what level it is. You're looking at the best players in our sport. So hopefully all going well. It looks a bit bleak here and there the last couple
few
of weeks, but we'll see. Maybe there can be some sort of bubble solved in UL or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get like the NBA bubble sorted out. We'll get on to Basketball Ireland.
I don't know where the funding will come from, but I'll just hope for the best.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And kind of chatting there about obviously making a professional career, getting to play for Ireland. How much does that mean to you? Like, kind of going back to when you were younger, is this the dream?
Yeah, it is really. I suppose I try not to think about it too much, because you know, it's at the end of the day, it's your job, and you know, there's plenty of time to think about it when it's all over. But yeah, it's the best decision I've ever made, and I've been so lucky to, you know, meet the people I've met on the journey and experience different ways of playing, and just playing against and with different players. But yeah, for as long as I play the game and as long as I can, I'll try and make the senior Irish team. There's absolutely nothing like wearing the Irish jersey, and that was always a goal when I was growing up, and I'll do whatever I can to try and keep that dream alive, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's long story short, it is kind of everything that you've ever wanted when you were younger, and you work for it, and you're lucky enough that the opportunities fall your way. And I've been very lucky to have people around me that have pushed me and guided me in the right direction. And you know, I was a pest when I was younger, asking questions to people who've done it before me, and I've always wanted to give back then to the younger people, because I know what it's like to want to get there, and then when you are there, to try and appreciate it as much as I am. And then just for some of the younger people, like, just keep asking questions, because that's all I ever did, like, and it just helped me so much. Some people aren't as approachable as others, but all they can say is no, you know.
Exactly.
And everywhere I go, I just keep asking the questions, and it definitely stands to me.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you give to players looking to play professionally, whether they're in maybe college, Super League, or maybe playing underage basketball at the moment?
I suppose no matter what level you're at, and if you want to go to a higher level, it goes without saying, you just have to work hard. You know, I think everybody knows that, but I'm not sure everybody does it, you know. And hard work doesn't mean like running yourself into the ground every single day. Just being smart about it as well. And as I said, just asking questions, and advice for me would be never getting too high, never getting too low, and just kind of, you know, asking yourself all the time, what can I do to get better? And, you know, whether it be watching or reading, I don't know if you want to write about it, whatever it is, just to try and get better. But that there's always somebody else coming after you. There's always somebody before you, that overall you're just a number really, or just a name that's thrown out there here and there. But you know, and just don't let the hard work be questioned. Like, everybody's going to have their judgments on different and opinions on different players and whatever, but just never let it be that if he worked hard, he could have been this. If you can control that, like, I think you'll get, no matter where it is, whether it could be making your first year A team, it could be signing a professional contract, could be going to the NBA, I don't know. But just your hard work is what's going to get you there. And just staying positive really, I suppose, because it can, you know, if you want it so much and you're so desperate for it, that sometimes that's when it kind of slips away. But just having a want and then being smart about it.
Okay. And that's something, talking about working hard, I think Jordan Bent was on, I can't remember the name of the podcast, but he was saying, the only thing I can go out and control in a game is how hard I play. There's no point in worrying about, like, I'm adding to this, but there's no point in worrying about, I don't know, the ref, or like who you're marking.
Absolutely. Like, or 100%. Or like, what you've done or what you felt during the week or what happened before the game or whatever. The only thing you can control. He's dead right. He's dead right. It's all you control is your own hard work and just being the best teammate you can possibly be to the next guy that's down on the roster. And that's what you can control in that time, and everything else goes out the window. And you can, and after the game you can go back to the drawing board and see what you can do. But Jordan's dead right. All you can do is control your own hard work and let the rest take care of itself.
Absolutely. Chatting there about working hard, is there anything you wish you worked on when you were younger, kind of from your experience now as a professional?
I wish I wasn't such a perfectionist. I wish I had a little bit more patience. Like, I was very much I was never an emotional wreck, but I was always like, oh, why did I do that? Or, oh, why did I do this? And kind of, I used to get too down too quickly. And some people would say I even still am too much of a perfectionist, that I get in my own head too much and I'm not playing the next play or whatever. But I was definitely worse when I was younger. So I wish that I took, or that I had more patience with myself, because the opportunity for learning comes and goes very, very fast. And when I was giving out to myself about one play, I'm missing out on the next one where I could have been better for my teammate. Or you just have to get over it, and find ways to, I don't know, it might be slapping yourself on the leg, or it might be clicking your fingers, or telling yourself something, but trying to just get to the next play, because it's gone, it's done, it's useless now. And just not being as much of a perfectionist so young and so early, and just be a little bit more patient with myself. But and then when I was very young, maybe it's always the way, I don't know, even the highest level guys might think the same thing about themselves, but I always thought I was working hard, but I could have worked harder. But that doesn't mean I didn't work hard. But even up to 2 years ago, I was like, did you work as hard as you could have? Or and I never want that to be a regret. So that's even kind of just for going forward as well, I suppose, not just in the past, just don't let it be a regret, just keep going. Easier said than done, obviously. But
of course, everything's easier said than done, and hindsight is a great thing as well.
Exactly.
The sideline 7 is the same 7 questions for every single guest. I'm going to start off with question 1. What is your favourite quote?
I'm not a massive quote guy, but when Kobe passed, obviously you were listening to different podcasts or reading different things, and there was one quote that resonated with me, and it was the most important thing that you can do is to inspire other people to be the best that they can be at whatever it is that they want to be. And that, I think that was the way he kind of lived his life, and shaped his career, and always wanting to be better himself, but to inspire others. And I think that's what made him be so successful when the teams that he was on. And it just shows the game of basketball is very selfless as well. If one of the greatest players that ever played the game says something like this, that he was so inspiring in his own work ethic, but he wanted to inspire other people. To be whatever it is that they're, whether it's to be a singer-songwriter, to, I don't know, be an actor, whatever it is. And just that, even, as I said, for him to be as good as he was, he always knew that there was somebody else coming after him, or coming behind him, or whether it was LeBron or Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, whoever, that just to inspire those people, that just being that selfless, I think is pretty cool. And I'm nowhere near Kobe or anything like that, but if I can have some sort of shape or form like that of trying to inspire the younger people, and with basketball being such a minority sport in Ireland, and so many younger kids that are so passionate about it, and that if they can get 5% of what I got and the experience that I've had, I'd love it, so I don't always live my life like that, but that's just one quote that when Kobe did pass, that it just resonated a small bit with me. So that's probably my favorite one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Best sporting event you've been to, and you can choose that maybe as a fan and as a player.
Okay. I suppose I'm a basketball player, so I have to go with basketball. But there's nothing like All Ireland final day. But no, when I was in the States, in 2012 I got to see Boston Celtics play against Oklahoma City Thunder, and at the time it was Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Rajon Rondo,
wow. Yeah.
James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant were on Oklahoma City. So it was kind of 7 amazing players there, however amount of MVPs and however amount of championships and stuff. So yeah, I'll never forget it. It was my first NBA game, so it was like 108 to 100 to the Celtics. And I was in the Boston Garden as well, obviously with it being so historical.
Yeah.
So that was probably my favourite. I was only 18 as well, like, so, you know, you're kind of taking everything into, like, it's just unbelievable, maybe one day I can play here type of thing still, you know.
Yeah.
So that was cool. That was very cool.
Yeah. The NBA games, the entertainment piece is nearly more important than the game to some people, which is the funny bit for me.
Yeah. No, it's they make it a big event. You know, I was there for about 4 hours. Like,
yeah. Oh, geez,
the game's only an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think you'd be waiting now another few years for Sam to go back to Cork as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be more than that now.
I had to throw that in. Though. I love being a dove at the moment. It's great. Your biggest achievement on or off the court?
My biggest one personally is probably signing my first professional contract. That was, you know, just a big achievement, big accomplishment, be something I suppose I'll always be proud of. But it was kind of not like, oh, look, mom, I made it. It was just very warming, I suppose. It was like, Jesus, I'm actually, like, this is my job now, and this is before all the rest of the hard work was going to start, and I didn't know I was ahead of me. It was still cool to take a moment and be like, this is class. Like, I've just signed a contract. It's now my job. It was a hobby before, and now it's my job, which was very, very cool at the time. And something I definitely don't take for granted. But yeah, I'd say that was probably my biggest. I played with my first senior Irish cap. My brother was on the floor at the time, and I was subbed on for whoever I was subbed on for. But, you know, we were playing Malta in Moldova, and we were up well. We were up 20 something, and, you know, I was able to take a second to be like, oh Jesus, you're on there. Like, it's kind of like just two of us with getting our first Irish cap together, and so that was kind of cool as well. There's not a ton that can say that they're, you know, I only have one brother, you know. Yeah. So for both of us to be able to play with Ireland together at the same time was very cool.
Yeah, that's a really nice moment there for you guys and your family and everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. Looking back, advice to your 18-year-old self?
Probably, like I said earlier, stop being so
perfectionist.
so professional. Oh yeah, such perfectionist. And just be more patient. But yeah, just to, like, be a little bit more positive, you know, and just kind of enjoy it. Like, I definitely enjoy it more now, but at the time I was always like, no, I have to get to this level. I have to do this. I have to. And it's like, it never took away from my game, but, like, maybe I could have smiled more at the time, you know. Like, maybe the lads might have found me more entertaining at the time. But yeah, I learned that quickly when I came back to Demons anyway, that you can't take it too seriously all the time.
No, definitely not. I like that one, smile more. That's a good one. Dream dinner guest and why?
That's a good one.
You can pick a few now. I really do have to change that question.
Steve Kerr, I think, will be a great one.
Yeah.
Because, number one, he played with the greatest player of all time for however many years. All the stories he has from the Last Dance or whatever, like, I'm sure he has thousands more that couldn't be told.
Yeah.
And then the fact that he got to coach KD and he got to coach Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, I'd say he has endless amounts. So that would be very entertaining. I'm a massive Steph Curry fan in general, so that, you know, just being from a small school and, you know, kind of he's not supposed to be as good as he is, you know. He's kind of after changing the style of the NBA, and what is he, 6'3" and like 13 stone or something.
Yeah, that's
in or around what I am. Like, it's like, how are you that good, you know, when you're amongst these monsters every day? So yeah, he'd be very interesting as well.
Yeah, That'd be a good conversation.
There's loads more. There's loads, but the list is so long.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Steve Kerr's piece on The Last Dance. I thought it was really good, really insightful to him. Yeah, really interesting.
When he got punched and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He's unreal. He'll have a long career within basketball, like after he finishes coaching as well, you know.
Yeah, definitely. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
COVID-19.
COVID-19. That's a good one.
Yeah. But I don't know. I suppose I just think I'm very lucky at the moment because of what's going on with all my buddies and my family back home not being able to play, and them all loving basketball as much as I do. So something to do with luck anyway. So I don't know. I can't think of a name, but just the year that we're in for me to still be playing, and especially at the level that I'm playing at, I'm very, very lucky. So something about luck anyway, I'd say that's probably this chapter.
That's a good one. I actually skipped one by accident. I think it was biggest setback or challenge so far in your career.
Probably the surgery, my first surgery when I was just in first year, like just, you know, with a massive bag of books, afraid to use my locker, run around the place on crutches, like just that was hard, not being able to play and watching all, like I missed out on my Fela and all that, and sure back then Fela was everything.
Oh Jesus, Fela is like this big massive thing for some reason, and looking at it now it's like, why is there such a big deal?
Why? I think it's like the first almost All Ireland competition or whatever, and you know, we were one of the better teams in the county, and we got out and we got into Munster and lost, and I was on crutches on the sideline, and I was like, this is brutal, like what am I doing?
I missed my Fela as well. I broke my wrist playing basketball. I think I got the cast off
what are you playing that game for?
And I was going mad because I just had the cast off, and I was like, I'm going to make it, and the physio was like, nah. I was devastated. But looking back, like, it's such a...
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I'd say that was probably the biggest setback, but as I said earlier, probably the biggest driving force and what changed my mentality and all that stuff then afterwards. So, but at the time it was awful. I had to learn how to run properly again, and like, it's not a sob story, but it was hard for a 13-year-old, you know.
Yeah, it is. It's hard for everyone. I've gone through that a good bit, learn how to run. I'll have to learn again. It's rough. Mentally, it's rough. Yeah. Definitely. But look, Adrian, you've been so generous with your time. Thank you so much for coming on. And
no bother at all.
And best of luck with the rest of the season. Hopefully you're not home until May. And
there you go.
We'll definitely keep in touch.
All right. Thanks so much for everything. Cheers.
Thanks a million, Adrian. See you. A huge thank you to Adrian for coming on today. I thoroughly enjoyed that episode, and I'll definitely have to get him on again. If you want to keep up with Adrian the rest of his season, be sure to check out the description box below. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you did enjoy the episode, be sure to leave a rating and a review. If you're interested in starting up your own podcast, be sure to get in touch with the Primal Productions team over on Instagram at Primal Productions.